Reddit fresh. Am I the idiot for telling my niece I didn't want to be her father and following through? My sister and brother-in-law passed away 5 years ago, and I was left with her children, Eric, 11, Melissa, 14, and Lily, 7. I never wanted children, and honestly don't particularly like me. But my brother-in-law didn't like his siblings, and his parents were abusive, while my parents are too old to raise children. So I was the best choice. It was hard and horrible, but I did it for my sister, and my nieces and nephew, even if I hated all the crying and parenting. They've all had therapy, and I've tried to be a good uncle and father figure. The younger two are mostly normal and well-behaved, but Melissa is a nightmare. Even with therapy, she always acts so rude and refuses to accept rules. I swear Melissa goes out of her way to do whatever she shouldn't. The big problem came up because last month Lily called me dad. I've always corrected her and said I'm her uncle, but this time she was really upset and said she loves me and wants to call me dad. Eric joined in saying it too. I felt it was weird but ended up allowing it, because fighting it clearly hasn't worked. Melissa took it horribly, and we ended up arguing. She basically said I'm not their dad, and won't ever be, and have no right. I tried to calm her down, but it didn't work, and we both got angry. She said it would be better if they stayed with anyone else. I ended up telling her to stop being such a brat, and I never even want to be her anyway. She's only here because it's what my sister wanted, so I don't care if she doesn't see me as a dad. It didn't end well. The next day she tried to apologize, and I told her it's fine and she doesn't have to worry about it again. That she wins, and I'll just stay out of her life. Since then, I just have not treated her in a fatherly way whatsoever. She doesn't have to do chores and stuff, but she also doesn't get an allowance or advice or help with homework or drive to friends and everything, since it's such a crime for me to be fatherly. Yesterday, my parents came over and just ripped into me saying I'm being a poop parent/uncle and hurting Melissa. They've always been close to the kids even if they're not able to parent, and I guess Melissa complained about me. They say I have no right to say what I did and treat her like trash, but it's literally what she wanted. She said I'm worthless and have no right to be in her life. So I wasn't. It's not my fault she's not like her siblings. We agreed to disagree, but they clearly aren't happy with me and say that I need to grow up, and that she's the child, not me. I know I'm not good with children, and I have made mistakes with them, and I certainly wasn't graceful this time. But I don't think this was that bad. She's constantly making a big deal about me not being her dad, so fine, I won't be. But it is possible I went too far without realizing, I guess. Am I an idiot? You're the idiot. You took on this role reluctantly enough. But it's parenting and you can't do it half-assed. Either you go all in or you make other arrangements, and not treating her fatherly in any way is childish. You are grown up. You should be a bigger person. This sounds like a lifetime subscription to a therapy situation. No idiots here. Let's be realistic. You are all traumatized. You are all trying to navigate your trauma, and it isn't easy for any of you. Try to remember the loss the children have suffered and how that may have impacted their brains as they grew. And also give yourself some grace and forgiveness as well. Yesterday may not have been perfect, but tomorrow can be better. Now, for the next story. Am I the idiot for banning my mom from my house after she brought resin and glitter in to make a point about my wife? My mom and my wife do not get along. That is actually an understatement. They can hardly manage to be in the same room, but we get along great with the rest of the family, as does my mom, and neither is willing to sit out of family stuff. My wife does get overwhelmed by my mom, and everyone tends to gather around my mom, so our therapist suggested that she bring something she can do when she needs a break, so she has been bringing crochet. My mom got annoyed by this and said it was rude and something a 5-year-old would do, and said if she ever brought something to our house and tried to go into the other room and ignore us, we would raise hell. To be fair, that is kind of true. My wife is really big on manners but doesn't always uphold the standards she holds my mom to, so I told my mom that wasn't true. I joked my mom could learn how to crochet because none of her hobbies are something you can bring to someone else's house. Recently we hosted a family get-together and my mom had a large bag when she showed up. I honestly didn't think anything of it. We were all outside and my mom casually told me she needed a break, so I said that was perfectly fine. See, no double standard, she can go inside and chill. My uncle later went in to get a beer and came out laughing and said, "I need to see what my mom is doing." My wife and I ran inside and my mom was working on an art project at our coffee table. She had resin, glitter, beads, shells, and my wife lost it and began screaming. My mom said we were being hypocrites and she was doing exactly what my wife did. Her hobby is just messier. I told her to get out, cussed at her, and said she was banned. She said okay and then told us the glitter on the floor isn't her fault, her husband did that. I told her to get the frick out and never come back. She got glitter and tiny beads on the rug and resin on the table. My aunt and uncle defended her and said I was being unfair and my wife is super rude to bring crochet to family stuff. My aunt said if my mom is banned from our house, we are banned from hers and I can't go to Thanksgiving. My cousins tried to defend me, but my aunt was serious. Even my cousins after the fact said it was kind of funny and not that big of a deal. Edit. Previously, we did get mad at my mom for trying to remove herself from situations. She also calls my mom out every time she is rude. But to be honest, can be pretty rude to my mom as well. She also got mad that my mom wouldn't eat her cooking and called her a toddler, but went to my mom's feast of 7 fishes on Christmas Eve and was gagging because she hates seafood. Biggest blowout was probably when my wife got mad at my mom for jumping into some guy's arms and kissing him, and then later that night sat on my lap in front of everyone, and my mom was like, "What the frick?" My wife totally missed the point and was like, "Are you jealous because I took your son?" My mom didn't talk to us for a while after that one, and almost skipped out wedding. Not the idiot. Your family dynamic sounds messy, and I'm not just talking about the mess your mom left on your coffee table. What your mom did was deliberate and spiteful to your wife. Your wife is just following her therapist's advice. I don't blame you at all for banning her from your house. Not the idiot. I bring my crocheting with me all the time. It's not considered rude because I sit in the room with everyone else while I'm crocheting. I still hang out and interact with everyone, but I just have my hands occupied. I have lots of other hobbies, but I have never left a mess or glitter bombed in someone's house. That is not even in the same league. That is seriously WTF. Your mom was really out of line with that. Now, for the next story. Am I the idiot for yelling at my wife because she badly injured herself trying to get our cat out of a tree? Our cat got out and we discovered him sitting on a tree. It was high but close enough to the roof that I, male 28, figured he must have jumped over from the roof and he could jump back. He was meowing loudly, I don't know why, but my wife, female 26, thought it was a cry for help and decided to climb up to get him down. I told her he was fine and would come back down on his own, and if he didn't, we could think of something else like getting a mattress to break his fall, but she didn't listen to me and tried to climb it. I told her to at least wait till I can borrow a ladder from a neighbor since we didn't have one, but she said if we waited too long he'd jump and hurt himself. He was being very loud at that stage. I said he's just being dramatic, and if he's not, let's just think of something else because the tree was very high for a human. She tried to climb up from the ground, but it didn't work, so she went inside and climbed up on the roof from a window, and then climbed from there to the tree. The whole time I was yelling at her what a stupid idea that was, because there was no way she'd catch her footing, and there was a serious chance the branch he was on wouldn't be able to support her weight. But she didn't listen to me and fell down when she tried to steady herself on the branch. She had a major cervical fracture, head injury, other broken bones, and came this close to breaking her neck. She had to get 2 surgeries, and it was extremely anxiety-inducing. 2 weeks later, she is still in the hospital but on the mend. She started joking about the fall and joked that it was probably because of our black cat's bad luck. At that point, the anger over her recklessness that I hadn't felt because I'd been so worried came to the surface, and I told her it was entirely her own fault. She got defensive and said she couldn't have predicted it, at which point I yelled that I predicted it and told her exactly what would happen 5 times before she went ahead and did it. And the cat got down on his own before the ambulance got there anyway, just like I said. Then she started crying, and I started crying, and she said I was being horrible, but I said I can't just not point how wrong she was for making a very reckless choice that nearly killed her, gave her very painful and possibly long-term injuries, and made me and her parents think for hours that her life was on the line. I got back, and her parents called me to tell me what an ass I was, and that she told them to tell me not to come back to the hospital unless I apologize and never bring it up again, but I need to talk this through with her and can't just let it go. Not the idiot. Your wife did something that was both incredibly dangerous and incredibly stupid without regard for how it would affect you and your family. And there doesn't seem to be a shred of remorse for what she put you all through. What did she expect? You would be all, "It's okay, honey," forever. Your feelings matter too, not the idiot. The yelling wasn't necessary, but I'll give you a pass here. You've been on edge for weeks worrying about her health, so I'm not surprised it all caught up to you. It's extremely frustrating when someone refuses to acknowledge the consequences of their own actions, especially when they were warned profusely. I don't think you need to yell, but I also don't think you're an AH for temporarily losing control of your emotions after such a stressful period. Now for the next story. Am I the idiot for seating all the vegans at one table at my wedding reception? My wife and I got married a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't a huge wedding. We had about 75 guests. During the planning, a handful of my wife's family members asked us about dinner options because they are vegan. None of my family members are vegan, but we wanted to make sure that everyone had good food to eat. At that point, we hadn't talked with a caterer yet, but my wife assured them we would offer vegan options for them. We found a caterer that offered delicious vegan food. We tasted it. Very good. When we were planning the seating chart, my wife mentioned that one of her cousins said that she can't be seated at a table where meat is served. I asked a few questions about it, but my wife got frustrated with me, so I dropped it. But accommodating this was difficult, and eventually I got frustrated too and told my wife that if her cousin is going to be so militaristically vegan about this, then we are just going to seat all the vegans at one table, even if it meant splitting up families and friends. After a few more discussions and my wife talking to her cousin again, my wife eventually relented to my idea of having a vegan table. We put that part of the planning behind us and moved on. I literally didn't even think about it again until we started setting things up for the reception. My wife's mom noticed that some families weren't sitting at the same table and asked about it. I told her that we had to sit all the vegans at one table because of my wife's cousin. My mother-in-law got mad about this and said it's rude to have family members sitting at different tables and to have one table basically segregating the vegans from the rest of the guests. I told her that unless my wife's cousin wants to sit at a table all by herself, this is the solution we came up with, and we aren't going to change it now. Mother-in-law dropped it, but I could tell she wasn't happy. The ceremony went off perfectly, but when it came time for the reception, there were grumblings about the vegan table from my wife's family. While we were going around talking to people, a few of the vegans made comments about how they don't appreciate being singled out and separate from everyone else. I tried to be polite about it, but the fact that they thought bringing this sort of thing up to me on my wedding day was appropriate really started to rub me the wrong way. When my wife's cousin, the one who refused to sit at a table with meat, said something to me about it, I told her that we did that because of her. And the next time someone asks me about it, I am going to tell them to talk to her about why we had a separate vegan table. She told me I was being discriminatory against vegans, and I just turned and walked away. I wasn't going to put up with that BS any more than I already had. It's apparently still a thing within my wife's family, and she feels I should have been more willing to find a different solution. Everyone sucks here. So weird how you jumped from one unreasonable cousin to all vegans needing to be segregated together and separated from family partners. There were many other options you could have gone with. Telling the cousin no, they don't like it, they don't come. Just uninviting the cousin. Telling the cousin they can either sit alone at a table or tough it out for a meal, etc. Obviously, the cousin's request was overboard and unreasonable, but so was your solution. Not the idiot. I am the annoying vegan. I have been vegan for many years. I feed my children vegan, I'm militant, and the vegan table idea rocks. Not because I can't sit near someone having a steak, it stinks, but I'll swallow my nausea. But because it would just be so fun to meet new vegans and not be the freak at the table. As another plus, no waitstaff will mess up who gets vegan plates with this plan. It's genius. Now for the next story. Am I the idiot for not bringing a disabled woman's order to her car because she doesn't tip? Tough week. So I, female 24, am in college, getting ready to take my exams and graduate soon. To pay for some of my living expenses, I work part-time at a locally owned restaurant. Our restaurant does not offer curbside pickup. The owner has repeatedly said it's up to whoever is working if they want to bring it out or not. In order to offer curbside pickup, the owner would have to provide us with raincoats, which he doesn't care to do. Sometimes, to be nice though, myself or some other employees might bring an order to someone's car. This older woman in her 60s is disabled and ordered from here last month. I brought her order out to her car that day, and when she mentioned how happy she was that we were willing to bring it to her car since she's disabled and most places in town won't do curbside, I made sure to tell her that we aren't required and next time whoever's working might not bring it out, but that I was glad to do it that day. Since then, she's ordered from us twice. One other time a coworker brought it out, and then another time I brought it out. Well, she ordered from us again last night. She's a nice enough lady, but she never tips, which I would overlook except she's ordering $40 single-person meals. IMO, if you can afford to frequently splurge on nice dinners for yourself, you can afford $1 or $2 to whoever is going the extra mile to make your life easier. Last night it was raining and cold out, and I was the only person working the front. When she called to say she was there for her order, I politely let her know that since it's raining I wouldn't be going out. She kind of yelled at me, saying that she's disabled. How is she supposed to come get it? I told her that we do not offer curbside pickup, and that she was previously made aware of it. She asked to speak to a manger, who refused to give her a refund. He explained to her that the food was already made, and that we do not offer curbside, and she knew that. One of the kitchen guys ended up eating her lobster. When I told my husband about my day, he said I should have helped the old lady, and that I was an idiot for not doing so. I didn't want to work out the rest of my shift in soaked cold clothes for someone that can't even be bothered to tip. Based on her new Range Rover and frequent lobster, I assume she could afford to tip at least something. Not the idiot. You warned her it wouldn't always be curbside. Her getting angry at you is ridiculous, and asking for a manager when she already knew the answer also. You want special treatment? You tip your server, period. Not the idiot. Working in wet clothes would suck, especially wet shoes. Would it have been nice? Sure. But she was told it wouldn't always be possible. And she gambled and lost. It isn't a part of your job, super your manager, and they backed you up. Probably better this happened now before she had been coming too often and your boss changed his mind on the curbside thing.